Welcome to the next video in the series where we're going to look at step 5 of building the client and server exercise. So quickly let's open the exercise and find out what step 5 is. Step 5, we should take the basic client that we implemented earlier in step 3 and add two new commands to it, the sync and the source commands. And then we can test it with the server we made in the last video in step 4. So we should quickly review what are the commands that we've got to implement for source and sync. Extended client interface specification. So source is -s, sync is -k. And it says it should work like this, or it should work like this. And you notice it will say no response here, the same as it did for the other one, and it will say source response here, the same as it did for the other one. Very good. So let's go to Visual Studio, and we need to open the project that we had in Visual Studio for Connect. Then we should use Visual Studio to update a new version of this. So what we now have to do is, in addition to the no op and echo, we need to add some more commands. So if you remember from the specification we've just looked at, these had one argument. So they come in this one. So we said if it's /n, it's a no op, or it's nothing. So what we have to do is put some changes in here, because we probably should use a switch now on args 0. And now we can put a case for the /n. We can put a case for the /s. We can put a case for the /k. And then we can put the default for anything else. So each of these should have a break put in. So now we can take the code from the existing no op command, if statement, and paste it in the switch statement there. And we can tidy that up a little bit. And then we can take the code from the fault part here, and we could paste this in the default here. And then we can remove the if statement, as we don't need it anymore. Okay, So now we've altered the one argument section to allow other commands with one argument, which is the source and the sync. So the sync command basically has to take all the input from the keyboard and send it to the server. So that would involve just reading continuously all the lines from the keyboard until there's no more lines, or there could be an interrupt, so it could possibly fail, so we need a try and a catch. In the try we'll need a loop that forever goes to do something, and forever what it will do is read a line and then we can write that line. Now there are flashes down there, but we probably should flash that line as it's generated to the server. So that's sending those lines one by one. Sorry, that should be a for loop forever. However, we could also stop if the line is blank. So if it reads a line and there are no more lines, then that might be a reason to stop. So we should read a line before we start, and then we can say while our line. Okay, so we're looking at reading this line. I just realised that we don't want to use the stream reader. For the sync we're reading from the console, and then when we get a line from the console, if it's not null, so we continue to receive lines, then we write that out, flush it, and then we can read another line from the console. So we go around line by line, reading from the console, writing it to the server, flashing it to the server and getting another line until we run out of lines. And we put that in a try catch, so if the typing is interrupted, we catch it and then we can continue. So that's the basic functionality there. So when we catch it and continue, then it goes down to here, and then it will read back what the server replies, if anything. So if the server has replied with nothing, we get that. So we might have to make some alteration to that when we do the source. The other thing we have to do is, before we start sending the lines that's typed, we do have to send the command. So we can set the command equal to source. And we can write the word source to there and unflush that as well. So we've written the source and then we send all the other lines that we type to the console. So it's basically all, sorry, it's not source, it's sync. Okay. Let's tidy this up a little bit. Good. So for the source we can do something similar. We might, the command is source. And we just have command source, and there, and we get the flash and response. So that's all we need to do for the source. The source command will send back loads of data. So here we probably couldn't do just read to end. We'd actually need to read many lines, possibly, and surround that by a try and a catch. So we probably so if we read the response on a line by line basis, we can do read line and then a trim, and then we can have a similar while loop while response is not equal to null, we can do that later. So we can give the first bit, the first line of response, we could do like that. And then after the first line of response, we could do more of a loop, and then we can say response equals SR read line and then loop while we haven't got a response, and we can do a console write line of the response, and then we could trim, and if we put a try and a catch around that to allow for someone to interrupt that as we're going around the loop. Well, the reason why it thinks command is unassigned is actually because it's confused. Because Visual Studio is confused. It doesn't realise that there's a return here. So one of the ways we can overcome that is we can just assign a value to command, and then the error goes away. So we can build the solution. So basically we've just found a small bug. I can see another bug here in our code, because if there's no response, we don't want to go and try and do this try-catch loop. So that try-catch loop, to get the rest of the output beyond the first line, should go in there after we've printed out the first line. So let's build that again. Okay, so what we need to do is now do the testing with our server and our client command prompt. So we can start our server, and then we've got the server here. So now we can use our client, and we could just do one of the old commands, /n. Well, that's interesting. It says something went wrong. So we actually got an error there. So something that used to work now doesn't work. So we can try connect/e hello, and we get the correct response. So it's something to do with not getting a response here. So let's go back and try and check that out. Well, probably if we got no response, we can't trim it. So if response is null, we got no response. So here we can just do a write, and here we can just do a write, and not do the trim. We can only trim something that exists. Let's build that solution again, and go back to our two lines. So we can do connect/n. Now we do correctly get the word no response. So now we can do /k for the sync, and it should permit us to type various things here. It sends the first line and the second line, and then we get an error when we're sending more material. So we get okay, so we've got a problem, something going wrong after we've typed a couple of lines. So what's happening is we've read one line and then another line, and we get a timeout here which does a try catch, and then we get to here, it tries to read a line again from the server, and the server's already closed on it because it's got a timeout. So that needs to be protected by a try catch. So what we really need to do is take this try catch out of here and actually move it up to here, and then we've got to take out the catch from here and move it down and put it here. And I think that should do that, although the indentation is now a bit messed up, so we can sort out the indentation. think that's done, and we can try and build that solution. So that builds now. So we're still running the same server, so we just need to get the client prompt. And now we try the sync again, and we type a 1 and a 1, and it's just timed out on us 1, 1, 1, 1, and if we stop typing at any time, we'll eventually get a timeout, but it doesn't give us the something went wrong error. So now we can try the source, connect/s, and we see we get continue, and we can break in with the Control-C, and we don't get an error. The server has received the sync and the source. These are the timeouts it's received. So that seems to be working okay now. So what we need to do now is some of the validation testing with the test scripts, and then the job's done. Right, now we're ready to test using the test scripts. So the first thing we want to do is close down the server, and then we can run the setup script for the tests, and then we can call the test script. So for this one it's T step 5 test, and we have to give it the location of the server, which I prepared earlier. So it's running the script now, and it'll go through a series of tests. So it takes a few seconds to do each test, because it's launching programs in the background to facilitate the testing. So you can see he's doing the sync command on the client, and he's getting the response OK on tests 1, 2 and 3, and now he's doing the source command and he's getting the result OK, and now it has launched the server over here, and now it's trying the client against the own server, and now we're getting some test failures when running the client and the server together. So although it did look like it was okay when we're doing it manually, the tests that the software components can be integrated seems to have indicated some failure. Now offline I've debugged those faults and worked out where they are, and I'm going to make some changes. So this is just to show that you should expect errors when testing your program, and that locating the faults sometimes can be non-trivial, and that's why you sometimes need some assistance in the laboratories. So even the best programmers sometimes take some time. So one of the faults actually in the system here is because we got a flash there and a flash, we end on a flash. Later down here we do a flash, so we need to actually alter how we do the flashes here. So we actually, if we delete this flash here and we move that flash to there, that way it does a flash after each of the rides, and it's left with one remaining flash that we do here. There is also a fault here that sometimes the server has not got anything to send, so we actually haven't got a line to read, so that could have a fault. And the fault can only be here, and that's separate from the fault for here. So we've got to move this try catch again. So if we move that try catch back to here, So around this part it could fault out, and we've got a try catch for there. Then we've got a similar problem here. This one could fault and needs a try catch. So what we need to do here is we need to put a try catch around this read line . So we set the string to null. We try and read a line. If we can't read a line, it doesn't matter, and we have no response. Then we check to see if we've got a response. If we have a response, we write it out, and then we try and read any remaining responses. So I'm just lining this up here. So we can just check and build this solution. So I've basically fixed the try catches and some flushes. So we can go back to the test script again. We can run the test script. Once again, that runs this as a software component. And again, it takes a few seconds to run it. So you can see now on these later tests, 5, 6, 7, 8, it is actually getting okay. And now it says it's passed all 9 tests. It says, would you like to try some more tests? And give it a number. So I'm going to give 5,000, and it will try testing the client with 5,000 lines of data on a sync, and it says that's okay. So all 10 tests have passed. So now we've completed step 5, and then we can move on to step 6, and there will be a video about step 6. So again, I hope you found that useful to see somebody work through a piece of the assignment.